First of all, thank you for coming. I'm so excited. This is my first time doing a panel at a convention and about one of my favorite subjects. So thank you guys for coming to the panel before we even get started.
Yeah,
Yes,
give
clap
yourselves
for
a
you.
hand. Thank you.
Thank you.
So that being said, we're going to roll right into things. Just for some context, this is a presentation that I put together for my Black Women in Art class my senior year at VCU. And the subject was vague, do a presentation that has something to do with Black women in art. So me, being a nerd, I'm like, games, I'm gonna do it. So welcome to our Black Women in Gaming panel, where we are going to discuss how Black women are represented in games and how Black characters in general are represented in games and how that affects us as fans. So first, our little disclaimer is that there will be times that we examine Black characters in general, and this is because there are just that few Black women characters to talk about, honestly. So, and some things intersect, of course. So we're gonna have quick introductions so you can see us outside of our costumes. My name is Alexis. That's the picture of me of the first. I use she, her pronouns, so please, if you address me during the panel, use those. And yeah, that's it for my intro. Here, CJ.
My name is CJ. I'm the one in the middle at Disney World, and I use they, them pronouns, please. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Gwen. I use she, her pronouns. I promise I'm Black. I know it's really pasty in that picture. I promise. I
She's
make
got tight curls.
Oh, and before we move any further, we have to read some things for you so you can know how to work the convention, I guess. It's recommended that you all download the guidebook app to make sure you know when stuff is happening, on your phone. You don't have to go check the signs or anything. Also, after this panel, please fill out the feedback section on the guidebook app for this panel to improve MAGFest. So if we want to bring a panel like this back next year, your feedback will let them know, yes, we want more panels about
leave us
Black
a good
women.
review and we'll come back.
Yeah.
All right, great. So, digging right in. Heads up, we're gonna have spoilers. We're gonna be talking about video games, and to some extent, we have to reveal the plots of those games to examine the characters thoroughly, so there will be spoilers. I'm sorry ahead of time if you really wanted to play Infamous 2 spoil-free. So just an outline of how the panel is going to go. We're going to examine three sort of different topics as far as genres of games. We're going to look at character creation games and look at skin color options, hair options, and facial features that you can use when creating your character. We're also going to look at non-character creation games, which is your standard story, plot-based video game, which is kind of the juicier one to dissect because now we get to see how the characters were created and how the developers, what light they put them in to be in the game, and then how their plot lines affect the main story. We're also going to look at generalizations in these characters, tropes, discrimination in-game of the characters, and some discrepancies between concept art and final product. And finally, we're going to look at fan responses, which is if you're a cosplayer like us, how this affects you when you don't have any Black characters in your video games, discrimination you may face as a result of there being no Black characters, expectations of you, representation, intersection of all that stuff. So first, looking at character creation. When you go to make your character, you make your Inquisitor, you make your Warden in Dragon Age, since I'm wearing it, you typically see as your default starter a white man, and that's the first option you're given. You have to toggle over to play as a woman character, and then you have to toggle even further to get a Black woman character. Usually games come with a set of 3 or 4 defaults if you have character customization. Most of the time there's only one brown option, and it's usually one light brown, one dark brown, nothing in between, and then 3 other white defaults if you don't feel like customizing your whole character. So, good and bad things with this. There are some games that really heavily let you customize the bone structure of your character. If you've played Dragon Age Inquisition, they have a very in-depth character customization where you can do it on a 4-way grid axis where you can go diagonally, drag the nose to however width, whatever depth, the brow bone, stuff that people probably don't even care to pay attention to, they put it in there. But on the other hand, games like that don't have a lot of hair options. How many of you have went to make a character in a game and you wanted them to be Black, so you had to choose the short-shaved hairstyle? Yeah.
Wow.
And if you, I mean, obviously black people have that hairstyle, but we have more than that, more than just a short shave, more than bald, and more than an afro. If you saw my hair in the first picture I have like kind of big curly hair that's a little bit looser. I don't have that option. There's also no other like fun hairstyles other than it just being like out in an afro, which is beautiful, but we do more than that.
Lolita culture.
Well, we're going to try to keep it because we have a lot of slides to go over, but we are going to have a discussion section towards the end.
Yeah.
And so she's saying that in Lolita games, there are very few POC options with the hairstyles.
Right.
The dress-up
right.
games.
Yeah, dress-up games.
And there will be a time where we can, like, if you guys want to, like, raise your hand, CJ will, like, run the mic down. We'll try to save it to the end of certain sections so that we can move along. No, you're
It's
fine.
okay.
I
We
didn't say it at the
mention it.
beginning,
Yeah.
and I meant to. So what we experience is oftentimes you can change the facial structure of the character, but then the hair doesn't match. And you can see some games do a decent job of it. If you've played Skyrim, you know there's a red guard race, and they do provide you some, like, tiny baby dreadlock and cornrow options, so more than just short shave. A takeaway from that is that you can also use those hairstyles if you are a Nord, which is the standard white character. So you can be like a Nord with cornrows and dreadlocks, which isn't make it like a fun exclusive black character option since it's our hair that does that. And sometimes the vice versa happens where you get to change your skin tone, but it's the same face, different skin issue that you have where the features still don't entirely represent it, almost turns your blackness into European features. And a game like Pokemon, I understand, is on a small console and there's not much room for detail, but you know, if you're going to take these steps, you might as well try to make it a little bit further. My nose isn't a tiny dot, so. And something else to talk about in the Pokemon Sun and Moon game, specifically a lot of people were excited about the different hair options. I will note that the only one that is specifically looks like it's for black characters is the cornrow braided bun, and you can't really do anything. If you want cornrows, you're gonna have to have that cornrow braided bun. You can't wear it down, or there's at least three different, there's medium wavy and long wavy, but there isn't cornrows down, cornrows in a bun. You also can't wear a hat with that, and the hats are really cute in the game. So,
Yeah.
just a little disappointing. So looking at big game companies like BioWare, who this is from, all of these pictures are from Mass Effect Andromeda. If anybody's familiar with what happened when that game went out, there was like some train wrecks with the animation, a lot of disappointment
Yikes.
amongst fans, but that's a different panel. So looking at the hair options, I think it's kind of dark up there, but if you're familiar with the game, you can see that like I looked at a video that was like all hairstyles in Mass Effect Andromeda, and the only ones that looked vaguely ethnic were these two afros, which unfortunately I could only find like on a white character, or this like top cornrow braided that's shaved on the sides and top cornrow braided. While it's still a very cute hairstyle, it continues this notion that black people can only have shaved hairstyles to be the only way that they're represented in video game character creations. And another takeaway just for me was that one of the hairstyle options is on one of the characters in game, so you can see how limited it is. They didn't even give him his own hairstyle. They gave him one of the two they invented for the entire series. So BioWare has problems with it, yet people who work on their own are able to generate their own mods. So if anybody's familiar with mods, it's something that you can add to character creation games typically, or even to story-based games to change the way things look in the game. So this particular mod was to give his character curly hair, but you can see that even though it's curls, it looks vaguely like my hair texture, it's still fast-setted with pieces of straight hair that they had to put at angles. And while not, you know, the most streamlined thing, it gets the job done. They got to have the character that they wanted, but mods only work on a PC basis or like a computer. If I were to try to do this on my PS4, I wouldn't be able to do it, so I'm still limited in my hair choices. So just to kind of look at why this is a problem, typically when game developers are questioned about it, they say it has to do with, you know, generating physics into the game of how hair should move. But in a lot of games, the hair is fixated to the rig of the skull of the character, so they'll tilt their head, but their hair is not necessarily blowing, unless it's a game like Final Fantasy, where they have excessive detail on the hair. Most games you play, the hair is rigged in place and tilts whichever way the head does. In that case, you know, a lot of the straight hairstyles aren't blowing in the wind either in a character creation game. So why can't you just add some curls to it or do like some side twists? There's all kinds of things you can do that just aren't offered to us. And reading this Medium article, Tanya D took a quote from her in this article she wrote. As a black woman with locks, I can be disappointed that a AAA game can't do natural hair, as well as a 5 to 6-year-old title. Look at Dragon's Dogma, Guild Wars 2, all older games that do natural hair well. And then she also has some tweets here where she talked about being able to be a red guard in Skyrim, and in XCOM 2 being able to have like a yarn type of braid, which is like, these are older games that we're managing to get something done. So the fact that we can't experience this in our newer games that boast themselves on, or really pride themselves on how in-depth their character creation is, it kind of puts a wall between being able to immerse yourself in the game you want to if you're trying to put your face on a character, or your hair or your bone structure on a character.
So speaking of Guild Wars 2, these are some options that were made available via the Path of Fire expansion. So if you're not familiar with it, it's free when you buy the game, but this is super recent. So as of September 22nd, 2017, we've gotten these options for black characters. And so you see you have more facial structure options for your darker skin characters, more hair options as well, and even better is that they have skin tone options, which range from pretty light skin to very, very dark, which is something that we don't get in a lot of character creation games. So this is a big step forward. Although it did take this long to get here, it's super nice that it's implemented. And then also more recently, Monster Hunter World is a game that's going to be coming out at the end of this month. The demo was released this past December. And I actually had a chance to play the beta when it was released twice. And so Monster Hunter is a game that has some seriously in-depth character creation, and that's one of the things that they advertise for their game. So via the demo, you don't exactly get to customize your character. They just have some default options. But the default option for the female character was a black woman, and that's the first one at the top there. And of the 6 options that you had, 4 of them were women of color. So that's a nice change from some default options. Even though this is a demo, that does say it's a little bit.
I don't
what was
know
that?
if you can see that. I was like,
I'm just trying to see if you guys can see it clearly. Can you see?
okay, cool. Good.
Okay, yeah, we can. It's a little hard to see up here, but yeah. So again, this is just really nice to see. Obviously, the hair options don't look super great from now, but we still don't know what the full scope of the options are for the game until it'll be released.
So that was it for character creation games. Is there any questions anybody had? Anything anybody wanted to add before we move on to story-based games? Yes?
Wait, one moment. Sorry to interrupt.
Can you hear me? I noticed with Japanese games specifically, like, oh, they have dark skin, but they have European hair.
Yeah.
It seems to be a kind of a Japanese thing, but I noticed it with American-made games, they try, but they kind of make up excuses. Oh, we can't do this hairstyle because the rig isn't set up for the hairstyle.
Yeah.
It seems to be mostly Japanese games, like Olivia on screen for Pokemon Sun and Moon. She's
Right.
black, but her hair is very European. They didn't try with her, it seems, with her hair.
Right. Right.
That's all I had to say on that.
Over there?
Thank you for giving them the mic. The staff is really nice here. I'm so happy.
Yeah, they're doing a lot.
From a modeling st-
I mean, a little closer to the mic.
okay. From a modeling standpoint, so you are more concerned with like if the hair is rigged properly to where it can move, kind of like Final Fantasy, or you just wanted them to add more curls?
Adding more curls to it. Typically they say the reason they don't have the curly hairstyles is because it can't move with the physics of the game, but most games the hair doesn't have to blow in the wind like Final Fantasy. It just sits on the
Yeah,
head, so they
it
should
just
be
kind
able
of
to do that. Yeah.
Back and forth.
Okay. Just as far as production pipeline, yes, they can do that, but depending on the budget, it does actually take longer to render because that would require way more polygons than straight hair. Which I'm not saying is right. I'm just saying it would take longer for your games to come out, especially if you have multiple characters with different types of curly hairstyles, and you gave those in-game options to change those hairstyles, change those colors, you would have to rig all of that.
And from a game developer standpoint, they talk about that being a major difficulty, but if they want to be able to kind of pride themselves or talk about how they love all
Someone
of their
back there.
diverse hair choice options, if they
Raise
could
their
make
hand. I thought
20
somebody
different
raised their
straight
hand back there.
hairstyles, they could give me at least 5, you know, as a starting point. And as technology progresses,
Yeah, I
it will
think
probably
they
get easier.
put up their hand.
Yeah,
Sorry.
AAA games have better resources than some other game developers, but if you're making serious money off of it, I think it's okay to spend a little bit of time on rendering some like hair options for my more diverse audience. I mean, in turn, you'll get more money.
And the payoff from the fans, yeah, would be astounding. Yeah, I understand completely. The payoff from the customers could be.
All right, one last question, and then we're moving on.
Well, it was just more of a comment in the sense of, you know, I understand when someone comes up to you and says, hey, you know, our character creation in this game is amazing and we can do all these different things. And then when you get to people of color or women of color options, there's something like, well, you know, that took it, and that's obviously an understandable thing. If they're willing to invest that much time and money for costumes for the other characters in the game, why wasn't that, you know, kind of, God, what's the best word for it? Why wasn't that resourced in a way where everybody would get a chance to have as many options as possible,
Right.
as opposed to dumping everything into, I'm going to be honest, into the white characters.
Yeah.
And then all the other characters are just kind of like, okay, we'll just add a few things since that's what, you know, we understand that there's resources that are limited on a game. It would be nice to see a little bit of resource management that would allow people of color or any other ethnicities that play the game to have a little bit more options.
Yeah.
I don't think it's too much to ask. And then my other commentary, I think Olivia, they were trying to go for a Halle Berry look. Maybe that's why she ended up with that hair, but I'm not sure.
Our hair can get laid, obviously, it's possible. But because we have that versatility with our hairstyles, I think some people would really love to see it in their characters. So we are going to move on to the next section, Black characters in story-based games. Black characters in story-based games. Just give me that one. I like this one. So to lead this slide, we just have pictures of a few black women that we've seen in video games. None of them are really major characters. The first characters from Mass Effect 3, you only encounter her if you get DLC, and surprise, she turns out betraying you. So that was your first black woman in Mass Effect, the entire franchise, and she betrays you. It's great. If anybody's familiar with The Last of Us, it's a really popular game. People know what happened with Marlene, kind of starting as a co-tagonist and then turning into an antagonist to our white male character. Ultimately, fatal encounter, and you kind of thought that she was this strong, independent woman, which is another trope that we're going to talk about. But now we're moving on to the Pokemon characters, which is Gwen's deal.
Oh, Olivia. So Olivia is a kahuna in the latest games, Pokemon Sun and Moon and Pokemon Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon. So she is the rock type kahuna, and she is boasted as an independent woman. If you talk to any NPC that knows her, it's just like, wow, she doesn't have a boyfriend yet. And she also, when you battle her, she talks about paying attention to her hip movement and is the only trainer where we pan up from her ass to her face. So Lenora might be a little bit more of an unknown. Lenora was introduced in the Black and White series, and she is the normal type gym leader. Now, it was more of a problem in the anime and manga, where the apron around her shoulder she was actually wearing, and she was described as the strong mama character. And so that was removed in the adaptations for the US.
I love tropes. Okay, so
Well,
CJ,
speaking of tropes, here are like some examples of some popular media tropes that from mainstream media that translate into video games. There's the sexy lady, the sexy black lady who just has to wear no clothes and just be out and be sexy. And then there is the supportive character, which you love him, you love this character, you do, but they're not the main character. They're often like hey, yeah, I got your back, blah, 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 blah. And, they don't, like Lucy is an example of this because while He's like a great support character and people love him. He's got like 0 official content in Overwatch, which sucks, I think. And lastly, we have the token black character, which is the only black character to exist in the entire franchise. Literally, he's the only black man who's like a companion in the Mass Effect franchise. And on top of that, if you romance him, he will end up leaving you for another person, another woman, having a baby with her, like, and not even letting you know. So basically, cheating on you. He ends up cheating on you. So it's like reinforcing terrible, like, stereotypes about black men. It's awful.
And the thing about tropes that sucks is that, of course, we can be all these things. Like, black women can be sexy, obviously, but we can
Yes.
do more.
Yeah.
It's that lack of versatility. So we're going to very briefly, at this part of the presentation, go over some examples of black women in games. One of them, I was about to say a few of them. One of them is a lead character. The other ones are supporting characters in other games. So first we're going to look at Perna from Dead Island. There's a lot to unpack here. I'm going to try to go through it in like 2 minutes. So Perna, as you can see from her concept and advertising art, she appears to be like a medium to light skin tone woman. The first picture, she's intended to have braids, but they look like they're kind of silky, the way they're blowing in the wind, which, okay. So the next one, a little bit more detailed. You can see they put a little more detail into the braids. Hopefully you can see. And there's a little more coarser, tighter braids, but her skin is still rather light. And so her character description is that she's a former police officer, disgraced, kicked out of the force for killing a child molester who couldn't be legally touched, so she's handling her own business. And she's become a personal bodyguard for hire and balances out her serious rage issues with a great skill with firearms. And she's one of 4 playable characters. This game in itself is really bad with tropes because there's another character who is an Asian character and all she talks about is honor and redeeming her family's honor.
Ugly.
Which is
Ugly.
a very tired trope used for them. But back to Perna. So it says that she has serious rage. If you listen to this character speak, she's very loud. She's always very aggressive. She cusses frequently. And while, again, you know, people can be this way, it's not the only way that people can be. And it's often the way that black women get portrayed in media. It's one of the few ways. And to add another layer onto this, in-game, she is very dark-skinned, and her hair actually looks organically braided. But in their advertising, they lightened her skin as if they needed that to advertise the game better. It's really confusing as to why they did that. I mean, we know why they did it, but they felt the need that to advertise this character, she had to be lighter. The first picture makes her look like Taraji, so they put that layer in there just to advertise the game. But ultimately, the only thing that looks the same about these 2 characters is the dress she's wearing and the hairstyle. And this character, she is from, she's half Aboriginal, that's why she's black, but to kind of like add the final slap to this, they didn't even get a black voice actress for her. This woman is Australian. I dug for it. I dug and dug. I could not find out any traces of her being at least mixed black. So it's one thing to create these tropes for black women to play into in video games and in media in general, but then to not even provide them the opportunity to put their voice inside of your cookie cutter character. So, yeah. Yes, Cleveland from the Cleveland Show is voiced by a white guy, if nobody knew. It's a perfect example. So, next character. This is Nyx from Infamous 2. If you know her, you know you love her, but if you're familiar with the Infamous games, all of your powers are based on decisions. Your good moral decisions are blue, your bad chaotic decisions are red. You can tell by her appearance, she's the red color scheme, the chaotic character. She's always wild. She's like, come on, man, let's just go do this really quick. It'll just blow it up. It'll be fun. And that's kind of how she is personified. She's also more alluring than the other character. The blue character is a woman named Kuo, and she's like, let's be calm. Let's just figure this out. And then Nyx is no, let's just blow it up. So that's her entire personality. Her powers are to blow things up. And so another tag about her is that she's voiced by Nika Futterman, who is that voice that you always think is Cree Summers, but it's not. It's Nika Futterman.
Bootleg
So,
Cree Summers.
and it happens a lot. I'll hear Cree Summers? No, it's Nika. Okay. But it's another dark-skinned character, a dark-skinned black woman character who is aggressive, angry, and coded to be that way, and then voiced by a white woman. Aveline de Grand Prix is the only black woman protagonist in the Assassin's Creed franchise, and when she got announced, it was a really exciting moment, especially for me. Assassin's Creed was my first video game on console, so I was really invested in how this was going to pan out and develop. Ultimately, the insults to Aveline aren't necessarily from how her character is in game, because she's a pretty well-rounded character. Other than that, you don't learn much about her. She's a little flat. Some of the the game mechanics are fun, where she's half black and half French, so she still doesn't get to be completely black. Mixed people exist. I am one. I'm black and Puerto Rican, so it's like a double minority, so it's real. But as the first lead, they had to kind of have that drop of, well, let's make her French just a little bit. And then, there's the layer where she can disguise herself as a slave, which for the time period of game could be arguably interesting as far as her being in espionage. So I could look past all of those things if her game was given any attention by the developers. If anybody's familiar with Ubisoft games, they're really notorious for releasing their games at the exact same time before they're done, but they always want to release it October 31st. And a lot of the Assassin's Creed games will be unfinished. They'll add patches in as the game goes on. This was one of those games, except there was never a patch. So she was created initially for PS Vita, handheld console, very short-lived. Like, people enjoyed it, but it didn't last more than a couple of years, if I remember. And when they transferred her game to PS3, the mechanics didn't get better. She has one of the lowest running game times for an Assassin's Creed game. And if you've played Assassin's Creed 2 before, that game is very, very long. So Aveline has a really short game. The only game shorter than hers is the spin-off game of the Black Assassin, Adewale. If anyone's played Assassin's Creed Black Flag, Adewale is the protagonist's best friend. He gets his own game. It's DLC. It's about 5 hours of gameplay. So his is shorter than hers, but they both have the shortest, and they're both the black characters. And just another layer, Aveline is voiced by this white woman, so we didn't get to have a fun half black, half French black woman voice Aveline. So CJ's gonna take this character.
Okay. Yeah, this is Nadine from Uncharted. I actually haven't played this game, but I'm only listing her here because there was recent controversy about her in 2017, in which Laura Bailey is a voice actress for her, and she is a white woman. And a lot of people were like, this isn't right, and they criticized Neil Druckmann, who was the one who made this choice. And he was like, he just gave multiple examples of like how other white people have voiced people of color in the past and have done a great job. And then also said that a character's appearance should not be influenced by the actor, something like that. And then also, Laura said that she wasn't aware of the character's like race before auditioning for her, but she was like, I'm happy to have played her anyway. I'm very proud of blah, 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 blah. And the thing about this audition was that the person who did this auditioned people from South Africa because she was South African. And so they went through like, I guess, a whole bunch of like black and white people alike. And apparently she walked into the room, they listened to her voice, and they're like, oh my God, that's Nadine, that's her, it's her. And so it's kind of like upsetting that, like at the very least, black women should be able to represent their own characters. It's kind of like it's really upsetting to like hear somebody like try to like pull off a stereotyped voice of what they think a black woman, like what does a black woman sound like? Like what really, I don't know. Anyway, moving on.
And there's theater people at our school, and acting direction they're given is for the black actresses, they'll be like, can you act a little more, a little more, they won't say it, and they'll be like, black? Like, yeah, just throw some fat on it. This happens at the theater department, just heads up. So the final character we're going to examine is Vivienne from Dragon Age Inquisition. Very beloved character of the fans because she is a no-nonsense, about her business, very regal black woman. And there are a lot of positive aspects to her character in that we get to see a black woman in power in Orlais, which is the game's equivalent of France. So she's in a very high position. She's the Grand Enchantress, or the Court Enchantress, excuse me. It's fancy. So, but just there are some side notes to her that she has completely shaved hair because this game is the one that did not provide your character creation with any curly hair options, so she was not able to have any as well. She's also called Madame de Fer, which means iron, an iron lady, because she's so cold and precise, and you don't really get to experience any spectrum of emotion from her unless you do her side quest. And if you don't do her side quest, you don't see it. If you do her side quest, it's a very short, fleeting moment that you get to see her open up and experience anything but condescending glare. So, and to add on to this, she is also voiced by a not black woman. This is Indira Varma. Some people probably recognize her from Game of Thrones, but she's Indian and English, so she's still not black. Yes.
Yes, you, Tisha.
Tisha, our friend is here. She
Our
cosplays Vivienne.
Oh, we, Mike.
Oh, it's right here in my hand.
Hey, I had a statement. That's why I raised my hand. I will defend the coldness of Vivian for just a quick second, because if anything, this is probably just like one of the most intelligently written black females, because there is an actual reason for her coldness. It's because she is Orlesian. So therefore she is supposed to be that way. She's bred that way. That's the only way she knows how to emote. So that's why she's cold. And it's throughout the Inquisition that she almost feels a little bit uncomfortable around these non-Orlesian, how do I act, how do I not play the game, basically. So that I appreciate that she doesn't just switch from being Orlesian to part of the Inquisition, and that she stays Orlesian if you don't do the quest, because idealistically you're not going to open up to anyone who doesn't give you the time of day.
And the ultimate thing is, this isn't Vivienne, the character's fault. Of course, people are the way they are. Like, she gets to have her own personality. The issue lies in that she's the only black woman in Dragon Age Inquisition that you get to meet, and this is the personality that they chose for her. And the kind of the takeaway from you as the player is that you get to meet all these different varying personalities of different white or light-skinned characters, but you don't get to see any variance in your dark-skinned characters. But yeah, Vivienne is very beloved to my heart.
And the only other thing I was going to say is that I do also feel some sort of way that the only black female in Inquisition is non-romanceable.
Yes, she's
Right.
not
I will.
Yes.
So that
We're
is-
all mad about that.
I'm
Yes.
very upset about that.
for love. You had something to say back here?
It's that in the Templar mission, there's that one
Yes,
African-American
yes.
Templar. He's obviously not prominent beyond that mission, but he's still another African-American character you meet.
Yes.
However, there should obviously be more than just those two in a
Right.
whole universe.
That's our fun token trope.
Yeah.
We can hold them
There's
all in our
one black
hands.
person in the Templars, I guess. I don't know.
I'll just keep using it. Just keep that down there. If anybody wants it, just get it from the person who had it last. If that'll make things
Yeah.
go a little bit quicker.
Yeah.
Sorry if you feel
Thanks.
awkward holding the microphone.
I don't mind.
Okay, so we're gonna briefly just look at, there's like this in-between between plot-based games and like storyline games and arcade games, where, you know, there's a story mode, but this isn't a game where the character is shaped through story. You get that context from outside content like comics or any other things that the game creators give you. All we're going to talk briefly about for these characters is notably that a lot of the black women in fighting games are light-skinned. I can't say much about the way they're dressed because a lot of women in these video games are dressed this way, which is its own thing with women in general, but the only dark-skinned characters that I could find in fighting games, Manat, she's brand new. I think everybody knows who Manat is at this point. She's a really fun Egyptian character. There is a skin for Manat that allows you to make her skin white, and I have feelings on that, but we have a
Awful.
slide for that.
The feelings are bad.
They're bad feelings.
Somebody, multiple people
Yes,
do.
hands, you have the mic.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, and you just brought it up. Of course, there's a negative side to that when you have a black character or a person of color in a game, and they have a skin that makes them white, and a skin that makes them white. No pun intended. But
Yeah, I got you.
there's also a positive flip side to the coin of that, and I was gonna ask about this earlier, because how do you feel about when there is traditionally, like maybe in a fighting game, a traditionally white character, and they have a skin that makes them black? Because personally speaking, oh really?
Yeah,
You're
we'll
on
get
it.
to that.
You are on it.
I
We
was
have
just
a slide
gonna-
talking
I
about
was-
the skin tones,
Yes,
but go
we're-
on.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, for example, I am a I play a lot of Project M, which is a mod of Smash Bros. And one of the things that the developers did was they took Olimar from Pikmin, and they gave him a skin where he actually has black skin in it. And a friend of mine, he plays Olimar, and he's black. Honestly, I think he might be like the only black Olimar player, because there are so few Olimar players in the U.S. And he really, really likes it a lot. So that might work. There's a positive side to it too.
You know, there is a certain dialogue about that and the difference between going dark and going light, but
Yeah.
we have.
We'll
we
definitely
got
get
you.
to that.
We have a slide for you. Who else had their hand up just really quickly? Who's closer? Oh, yeah. Thanks, Neil. This is our Noctis cosplayer. He's recording it for us.
Yeah, our resident Noctis.
Since you were talking about fighting games, I wanted to know, what did you think of Master Raven from Tekken? You know who she is?
Which one? I'm sorry, can you talk closer?
I want to know what you thought of Master Raven from Tekken 7.
I am not familiar with Tekken specifically.
She is a black woman in that
The
game.
only one? Or
Yes,
she's like-
unfortunately.
Yeah.
No, she does not. She has Raven's
You mean the
moveset from
black woman?
the early games.
And that's interesting
Yeah,
because
but she actually
when
fights, like, legit.
I was looking for black characters in fighting games. I searched Tekken, Soul Calibur, and Street Fighter. And when I searched for Tekken, they gave me this girl at the bottom, and she's mixed.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Christian.
Yeah,
It's
she's
Tris.
mixed. So she's like she's Latina.
Vaguely brown.
Do you know how hard it was to find anything for this? It was so difficult.
Okay, maybe one more
Okay.
question.
Just one more back here. Purple shirt, black jacket.
Got to keep
Thank
the ball
you for
rolling
bringing
here.
that up.
So I can see it.
Hello.
Howdy.
Okay. So my original question was Master Raven, as the gentleman over there already brought up, but I guess an alternate question, well, more of a comment, that I'm not sure how many other people know this, but of course worldwide kind of sees black differently than we Americans do. For example, Elena is Kenyan, Maynard's Egyptian, Christy and Laura, I don't know who that is over in the bottom.
Santamu.
Who?
Exactly.
Thank you for
He was
proving our
just making
point.
a comment.
But yeah, Christy and Laura is, are Brazilian, and Ango, I don't know what the hell she is, but
Yeah, I was going to
she's just
briefly go
Angle,
over the characters
or
on
Angle, I
screen,
don't know how to
but
pronounce that.
it is the bottom right is a good one to
Yeah,
bring up.
we're
Santamu
kind of
is
running low on time a little bit.
Yeah, I'm
so
sorry, guys.
We're
We're
gonna
going to
have
try to
move
speed
on.
up so that you can all make your
sorry.
comments at the end.
Sorry.
Yeah, no, I'm
We're
okay,
getting to
I
it.
got
Soul
you.
Calibur.
I got y'all. I
It's
got you.
you can only like. I'm sorry. You can only for Soul Calibur, you can only get her if you download, do a specific thing. Like, she's not available default in the game, but
Once you beat the story mode. And
Yeah.
She's not in story mode. She's just an extra character. She's a sex demon.
yeah,
She's
something.
She's not black other than her skin tone. She doesn't have any black features. She's
Okay. Well,
She was a character in the middle. She wasn't connected to any other plot lines. She
Yeah.
was just there as an option. And Santamu at the bottom she's a secondary character, part of a group of secondary characters in Street Fighter. So she's more like a tertiary character, so she's not very well known. So just the brief thing that we wanted to cover in arcade and fighting games is that most of the time that we do get black characters or black women in arcade games, they come from other media. Example, there's a lot of Marvel fighting games, and you get a lot of their characters from the comic books. And while it's great to see, and that's why Storm is here, Storm is in a lot of Marvel versus Capcom and a lot of the X-Men fighting games, but this character was created in another medium. She was created for comic books, so it was easier for her to get generated there because somebody just had to write her. I guess I don't see why that's not as easy for a video game, but anyway, she wasn't originally intended to be a black woman in a video game. We just get that as a slight positive consequence to her existence in another form of media. So that being said, there is still a stark lack of black women created to be in video games. We have to either get them from another source or just deal with the 2 or 3 that we're given. Okay, so Gwen's gonna do this.
Cool. I'm going to talk about MMOs because I hate them. So my question to go with my MMO slide is there an option to play as or create a black character? And we'll be looking at the big 4. League of Legends, you have 2. They're both men. Heroes of the Storm, you have two, and one is Lucio, and the other is this orc man you see here. World of Warcraft, it's not an option. You just can't. I think you can if you're an orc, but we'll get into that. And Guild Wars, I already went over. They just implemented many more options for that, so they're at the top right now. So World of Warcraft, if anyone doesn't know, if you don't play World of Warcraft, in 2014 they released an graphics update patch that replaced all of the dark-skinned characters and made them all light. And again, this was released as a graphics update patch. That's it. People have complained about it for the past 4 years, and it has not been mentioned. Blizzard has stayed quiet about it the entire time. So there's that. And of course, we still don't have dark skin available for our human characters. And real human races are represented by the monster races. Just an example, the trolls have Jamaican accents. So I'm going to go over one of the characters in League of Legends, Lucian. In his official description, he is merciless, single-minded, and Lucian allows nothing to stand in his way of the path of his vengeance. Because, you know, that's all great. And you see down there at the bottom image, you see his official art for one of his skins, and he's white for whatever reason. He's also voiced by a white man. And another thing I just skipped over is that recently Doomfist from Overwatch just got an orc skin, black hand, and his skin is white, so they made his skin white, because that's a good idea.
All right.
One quick comment, your hand was up first. Who has the microphone?
Yeah, right there.
And we're going to try to keep it rolling, guys, because we are...
Yeah, we're running low on time.
Just wanted to note that with Lucian in particular, the person he's getting vengeance for is his wife, which A plus for having a black character who is allowed to have a love interest. The problem is Senna is the only black woman, and she is dead in a backstory.
Yes.
Wow.
She's the only one here, and she's not even here.
She's dead as hell.
Okay, well, moving forward. Many game developers are guilty of whitewashing their characters, and even though they created the characters themselves, they like whitewash them after the fact, so that's weird. The first character I have up here is Jade from Mortal Kombat. She used to have dark skin. She used to, but now she's white, I guess, and I guess everybody's okay with that. And the next one, yeah, this is the first comparison picture I saw. So
The promotional images that they get you to buy the game.
yeah,
Could everybody hear that?
yeah, awful. So the next character is Vanessa Lewis from Virtual Street Fighter. She also got a whitewash makeover in the next game she was in. And the next character is the character I'm cosplaying. Well, she's another ambiguously brown character. You can interpret her as black, but you can also interpret her as other races. But ambiguously brown. She got whitewashed, and all of her, she's just white on the right one. It's weird. In all the promotional things, for BioWare, for Dragon Age 2, she was just completely white. And then when they played the game, they were like, this is a completely different character. What's up? And BioWare was like, oops. And so they never fixed it. That's it. And these next two characters, they are half chastened in Dragon Age, and chastened people are a group of brown and black, native people. And while they are they're supposed to be half chastened, and while white passing people exist, it's these are your only two main chastened characters, and the only other chastened characters in the game, or I guess black or brown characters in the game, they're enemies or people you don't really care about. So it's kind of upsetting to see that they could have had black or brown futures, but they didn't, and there's a reason why the developers did that. So next slide. Okay, so this is coming into concept art. So video game concept art is it's crazy. So So more often than not, video game developers are like looking at their character design. They may have brown skin or black skin. They may have dreads like Solus on the right there. You know, they might have like afro puffs like Junko. And they may even be a black angelic man like Mercy from Overwatch. But I'm not sure what possessed them to think this, but they decided to change their entire race, make them white, make them pale, make them blonde. You know, it's it's really a tragedy. Like all these characters, like as far as like their story arcs go, it would have meant so much more to have them as like they would subvert so many tropes if these characters ended up being black in the final product, but they weren't, and they're just more white characters for white people to enjoy, sadly. Moving on.
A black man angel would have been the biggest subversion as to anything.
Yes.
Like, do you know how they would have got so many brownie points for that?
Yeah.
I'm working on it.
I need reparations for my abuse of no black. So this is just to connect back to what CJ was talking about whitewashing of characters, this time not by the developers, but by the fans. So if you go into Google, you type in Isabella mods, which is what I Googled. A majority of the mods, typically in games, are for hairstyles and outfits, but almost every one of Isabella's mods is to make her white, with blonde hair specifically, not light-skinned.
They
but
called
white.
it the attractive Isabella mod, by the way.
Yeah, it's great. I love it. Just slurp it up. So when you see this as like somebody who's trying to enjoy a brown femme character in a game, it's disheartening to see that not only are the game developers not attempting to give you representation, but then some of the fans surrounding you don't even support the notion of that character existing. You fight really hard to get just that one brown character, and then nobody wants her. So looking down, if you can see there at the bottom, there's a Vivienne mod that's very similar. We're going to zoom in on it. This is called the Pretty Vivienne mod. And there are actually, as our friend Tisha up here was talking about before, how Vivienne is in a very high place in power in Orlais, which is the game's version of France. And I'll just read the first part of this. Some fans have taken to demanding an explanation for how a black woman could rise to such a high position of power in Orlais, or how she even exists in such a society in the first place, as though people of color are non-existent in medieval times. It's not even just Vivienne. Any character with the slightest amount of pigment is in danger of that treatment. This is a setting in which dragons and magic exist, and yet some folks find Vivienne and other dark-skinned characters to be the least believable part of it. This article speaks for itself. I have a link to it at the end if you'd like to read the whole thing. She said, do people forget where France is?
People don't think that there's black people in France
Yeah.
for some reason.
But yes, again, it's just disheartening to see that this is how some of the fans treat the characters. The 2 or 3 that we get, they get treated this way. So, yeah. So patterns that we can take away from this are that there are hardly any black characters in the games unless it's character creation, in which you have to force yourself to be the protagonist. There's even fewer black women. You're forced into tropes that resemble the same things as TVs and movies. They're typically unromanceable like Vivienne, and the characters get whitewashed by the developers and by the fans. So now we're going to get to us, the fans, the people who are the most directly affected by this. So what we experience, I'm not going to read all these words, what we usually experience is similar to how you feel when you're watching a movie or a TV show. You can't find yourself on the screen. There's nobody that looks like you. The couple of people who do look like you, you may not identify with specifically, but you don't have any other options. You just have that 1 or 2 brown characters to try to find, maybe I match their personality, maybe I resonate with them, but you might not. And when you go to express yourself in other forms of media, if you're a cosplayer, if you go to cosplay, you get stuck in this rut where there's only one black character for you to choose from, and then you might unfortunately be with friends who are like, don't you want to be that one because you're black? Like, you should just be the black character, right? Or don't you think you'd look better if you were just the black one? And I'm sorry if anybody's had to deal with that, because I have. And
How many of you had to be Tiana in the princess group?
so obviously, black women and black femmes can cosplay outside of their race, and it looks like the exact same character. You can tell that those characters are all who they're supposed to be. Their skin didn't make a difference. And, you know, the first three are of us, and the third one is Otaku Scum Cosplay. And what's the name of the last one, CJ? That's
Rumito, give them a follow after the panel if you would like.
the first
They're-
three are us, but the
yeah.
other two are Mito and Otaku Scum Cosplay, who provided their pictures for our presentation. So it's not only possible, but more than likely, if you're playing a video game, that you're going to cosplay outside of your race if you're a black woman. And if you're looking for a black woman in a video game to cosplay, you got about 4 options per every 3 games. So it's inevitable to happen to you if you decide to express your love of that thing, of that particular game. These are some slides from another presentation that we did at our university's cosplay club a couple of years ago.
We do this a lot.
Yeah.
This presentation was called Racism in Cosplay. It was a little more specific, but these are just a few examples from slides in that presentation where we got people's testimonies about what it was like being black, specifically for them being dark-skinned cosplayers cosplaying non-black characters, and what the reception they got from people at conventions and online was like, and they are all mostly very, very negative. I'm going to move along for time's sake to what this does to us. It ends up being this really toxic cycle. We get injured twice in this event. Number one, there are a few black characters in the game, so we're like, no representation. That's the first hit. Then you move on to, well, who am I going to cosplay if you're a cosplayer? Or you're going to see some cosplayers. I wonder who's going to be there. There are a few characters to choose from if you want to specifically be a black character. You don't have that many to choose from, so you're like, well, I'll just be Princess Peach because I like her. And if you're looking for black princesses in Mario, there's like -2. So you're not going to be able to find her. So you're going to be Princess Peach or Rosalina or Daisy, who I, in my heart, believe was supposed to be black. She grew up in the desert. Just, I was robbed. So there's a high chance that you're going to cosplay outside of your race. If you are a black femme or a black person cosplaying anything from a video game, there's a chance that you're not going to have a black character to cosplay. But then you get to the convention and you get a lot of positive comments, but then you have that chance of somebody saying, oh my God, are you Black Peach? I'm just Peach.
Yeah.
I'm sorry for being brown, I guess. And in some cases, as shown in the previous slide, where people were getting negative comments about like, don't you think that looks a little dirty on you? Like this diva cosplayer received the comments "dirty diva" a lot.
It's really bad.
So you end up getting afflicted another time as if it's your own fault that you had no black characters to choose from in the media. So, nope. That was the last one. So, well, no, that's a visual. And this is our shrugging black person. It's like, what do you want me to do? So, yes. What is your comment? Do you want to? Oh, yes. Wait, black light-skinned cosplayers?
Black light-skinned cosplayers, like the experience?
Hello. That's me. Yeah.
It's about the same. I mean, I'm not dark-skinned. I would not even try to say that
I mean,
my best friend is.
I remember this incident one time where this Tiana cosplayer was like, she was half black, but she kind of was like, she was very light skinned, and like somebody like yelled at her. They're like, why are you white out here cosplaying Tiana? And she literally had to show a picture of her dad to like prove that she was black. And I was like,
it can be kind of rough
That's
because
the mixed struggle, which is also another presentation.
you can get discouraged from cosplaying characters with darker skin. Like I personally still like don't quite feel comfortable with like cosplaying darker skin characters because I'm gonna get a lot of shit for it, just because people don't know what I am, and I don't feel like explaining, oh, here are my parents.
Okay, I see some hands, so I'm just gonna really quick say that was our last slide, so this is the time to ask your questions. You don't have to worry about those questions. Those were for my project, the actual class project, where we had to be like, why do you think this happens? We know why it happens. So I saw these 2 hands here first, and you have okay, you have the mic.
Yeah, I was just going to say, because to bounce off of that, because I went to KupoCon in December, and I was cosplaying female Ignis, and I was just walking, I was just minding my own business, and someone looked to me, to my right, and they looked at me, and to contextualize this, KupoCon is a Final Fantasy-centric con. You should know what you're looking at. You should know what characters are which, unless you were dragged there. this Tifa cosplayer turns and says, "Are you Zaz? Are you female Zaz?"
What?
To
If
extra
nobody knows who Zaz is, he's the one black character in Final Fantasy 13. He's got a little bird on his shoulder.
The one.
I have no afro. I had no cute chocobo in my hair. I was a British woman with suspenders, but yet I was basically pigeonholed. So I feel all of
The
that.
pigeonhole is another experience that we have. So you had something, and then I saw you, and then we'll figure it out from there.
Yeah, we'll just.
Oh, yeah. So, I actually just cosplayed last year, the beginning of last year. And I'm trying to decide, who should I cosplay, what, character I should go as. And I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to cosplay and see how it goes. So, and I was actually, my first con, I cosplayed as Sebastian from Black Butler. So, and when I passed by, I'm just looking, and everybody's like, "Are you Sebastian?" I said, "Yes." And they're like, "Picture, please." So, and I have a whole bunch of, I have a list of, who I wanted to be, even if it's not part of my race, because that confidence. I just want to. It's for fun. It's not really just for, the color of my skin. I just want to do it for fun and just have fun with everybody else who's.
To touch on that, the reason it's different for black cosplayers cosplaying outside of their ways is because we literally have no other options.
That's true.
That's why it's usually more of a did you have to be the white person cosplaying Tiana? I mean, go for it, but I only have her, and you have literally the rest of the Disney princess franchise. So. Mike, pass over
Right,
here.
it's already-
You're next.
This is going to be real quick. Black people in general, stop supporting these games. They don't care about you. You waste your money. And for the cosplayers, black cosplayers, people won't, where I'm at, people don't say blow it out like that. It gets smacked up. So stay woke, pay attention. They don't care about us, don't support these games.
Right there.
So I want to just start off by saying, thank you for this panel. It's been really empowering.
Thank you guys for coming. There's so many people in here. I was very nervous.
And I want to say, anytime that I see black cosplayers just doing their thing, it's a very empowering thing, and I want to say, keep doing it. Because I have to say that the first time and last time that I cosplayed, it was definitely because I got an explicit comment saying that I was not the right skin color to cosplay as somebody. And it was someone kind of like a Brazilian character. So it wasn't even that out of the realm of
Brazil has the
possibility.
highest population of black people besides Nigeria.
Exactly.
So that's that on that.
So I want to say, the only way that they're going to know that this is important is seeing how important it is by fans dressing up and going into the games. And the other part of this, and you spoke a little bit about this, is people who are game developers, don't worry about what's been done in the past. Go out and make real diverse people. You don't have to worry about what everybody's doing. Start making them.
Right.
And then they can't say anything.
Exactly.
Yep.
Okay. So.
Yes. Okay, right here.
there.
He's been waiting for a minute.
Just real quick, one thing seeing people react to, people of color, cosplaying how they want, and they're saying, "Oh, you can't do that." I always makes me want to vomit. But then at the same time, then I hear the people that are not talking negative about them, but they're saying, "But what if I want to cosplay someone of color and I'm not of color?" And then my reaction is always, as long as you're not putting on any sort of blackface, you're going to be fine.
Whole presentation
That's a
on
whole
that.
That's another panel.
We have a
But
whole
then-
presentation on that.
Oh yeah, I understand that as well. So it's I hate how people feel like they need to be on eggshells when it comes to that, when it's obviously just about being respectful in that way, and just as long as you're not putting, when people with the Garnet from Steven Universe, people were trying to do that, and sometimes when they would try to do blackface for them, I'm like, no, she's technically
She's literally
not,
red.
She's red and not even black. I know she's supposed to be portrayed in that way, but at the same time, you can still, as long as you're not doing it in that way and trying to be respectful, it should be Exactly.
Yeah, it's absolutely possible. That's what my speaking on that. We have about 2 minutes left, so I'm just.
Okay, we have time for one more question.
Yeah.
No, just real quick, I wanted to ask, please do more panels. More
We would love to.
Listen, seriously, if you guys download a guidebook and you leave us a good review on the feedback section,
Yes.
they can give us a larger time slot next year.
Yeah.
So we can
And
have more
this-
time
We
for
can talk
discussion.
This is our first step. We're actually on our way to try to make a larger media platform for ourselves, including things like this in D&D. So if you ever hear anything about Tip the Wench, it's us. We're going to try to get it going.
Yeah,
We're getting our
closer.
Twitter up and going
If you want to
very
find
soon.
us again.
Yeah, follow.
That's where we'll be.
Follow it.
Okay, so there's one more minute.
Yes.
Is there time for somebody who hasn't spoken yet? So at the ground level, the most that we can do as consumers is we have to communicate with the developers and the people who make this. You tell them what they want. Twitter is a really big platform. It's a lot more common now for developers and companies to communicate with their fans. They're like, well, what do you guys want? And it's a matter of whether they're going to listen or not. But
It's also a matter of who is in the gaming, like who is developing games right now. Like who are we hiring? Who are Yeah.
We're getting there. We're working on it.
Yeah, if
This
this
is
panel
step
was
one.
longer, if we had a longer time slot, we would have gotten into that.
This
But
is more of an awareness panel because it would surprise you how many people at the ground level aren't aware of these issues. And that's kind of, if you can't do something as one person, you pass on that knowledge and you spark the right person and everybody goes on up. So
All right, and we are at time.
Optimistic
Yeah, that's
ending. Be
Can
the
we-
change that you want to see in the world. We're going to keep
Yeah.
trying as well.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you for coming.
hand, please.
I love each and
Thank
every
you.
one of you for being in here.
We'll try to see you at other conventions and hopefully this one again next year. Thank you.